Hi, everybody. Good afternoon, and welcome to Conversations with Calvin, We the Species. This is beyond a special moment for me, as we're going to interview Issata Oluwadare, who is an assistant dean at Honors College at Rutgers University, and that's part of our bond and our commonality. And we have so much to unpack in this. By the way, I always like to do dates. It's the end of September. It's now officially autumn. The official title, I want to capture you all, and it's quite a title. Issata Oluwadare, Rutgers, Science of Success, Easy Breezy Life, in parenthesis, Pursuit of Health and Self-Care, Associate Dean of Students, Honors College, author of Mighty Manny, and I'll be showing this to you throughout, and finally, Moguls in Consulting. So, without further ado, Issata, if you jump in and do a little bit of a bio of yourself, and then we'll kind of unpack things.
Hello, Calvin. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm so honored to be able to come on here and share a little bit about my story and what it is that I do within my sphere of influence, professionally and personally, to make the world just a slightly better place. To start off, I am a first-generation immigrant, first-generation college student. I have gotten both of my degrees and working on a third one here at Rutgers University. I only left the banks for almost 2 years. I don't think I could say 2 years after my master's program at the School of Social Work in 2009. And then I came back because I missed it. You know, I loved being a part of this community. I learned so much. And even though it feels like I have spent my entire adult life, actually, I have spent most of my adult life on the banks. I learn something new every day about this institution. And it's a great place to be if you're someone who loves to learn and loves to meet people. And I got to meet someone like you through the Women's Health Institute. And so this just goes to show that the institution is ever evolving and has allowed me to evolve into who I am today as a person and also as a professional. And so I'm just so grateful to be here and talk a little bit about my work and the lessons along the way that I've learned and why community wellness is so important to me.
Okay, and you mentioned briefly, I'll just kind of underline, you and I met a couple of weeks ago, literally at the Women's Health Institute. At Rutgers Robert Wood Johnson Medical School. You were a speaker. I'm on the advisory committee, and before we went on air, I told you about how I met Dr. Gloria Bachman, MD OBGYN, who's the director, and how I got so involved in women's health when I would never imagined I would have. And that's how you and I met. And I was so and it's funny, I was showing you, and these are all my notes just from listening to you from that time at Women's Health. I was so impressed with your journey that I contacted you, and here we are. So let's kind of talk about your journey through Rutgers and your pursuit of a PhD, if there's anything you want to fill in. You already kind of mentioned that.
Yes, well, you know, I started off as an EOF student, and for those unfamiliar with that program, EOF allows students who wouldn't typically qualify for Rutgers admission to have an opportunity in a pathway. And so for me, coming as a first-gen student from Jersey City, New Jersey, and being able to have an opportunity to attend what was Rutgers College at the time was really amazing. I met an amazing community. I had great deans, great advisors, some of which are still a part of my life today, and who I still consult with before I make any major decision in my career, just to let you know how deep these connections were. And so I credit much of my success to really having a wealth of mentors, people who were willing to invest in me, give me their time, their attention, give me advice, give me correction. And especially now when I look at myself as a woman in leadership, someone who was really instrumental in me coming into my own as a woman leader is Dr. Felicia McGinty, who was the former executive vice chancellor for planning and operations here, and also did student affairs in a way that inspired me to want more for myself in this career. And so it's important to say that I've been able to thrive because I have such great examples on the banks, people to look at and say, oh, if there's a way that I want to lead and a way that I want to leave a legacy, this person inspires me to do and be more.
funny. I've met Dr. McGinty a number of times through, I think, through our friend, I think Debbie Schuford. I don't know.
Yes, yes, I'm
Yes.
familiar with her too. Yep.
Yep. That's how I got so involved in part of my journey through Rutgers was Debbie Schuford, and then of course she introduced me to Dr. McGinty. Small world.
Hmm.
Small world. So you're an assistant dean at Honors College. Uh, what are some of the, I mean, I've read some of the things you're involved in that's beyond even my concept of what you do at Honors College with students.
Yes, love the work that I get to do. I'm approaching the 7th anniversary of my being in this role as Associate Dean for Student Support and Inclusive Communities. And really what we seek to do is to challenge what it means to be an honors student. We like to call ourselves the Uncommon Honors College. This means that yes, GPAs and SAT scores are key. However, there are so many other ways to identify talent, specifically New Jersey talent, and to give them a pipeline into what is the amazing institution that is Rutgers, to simplify all of the complex offerings that we have here at the institution and to create individualized experiences for these students. We do that in a couple of ways, right? We have an advising team, we have a professional development team, and then we have what we do within student support. And I like to say it as we teach our students character building skills that allow them to develop a solid commitment to themselves and a solid commitment to others through community service. All of our students have to complete 30 hours of service. Wow. And we do that because we very much believe in following tenets of servant leadership and trying to just plant the seeds along the way for our students. And we've seen our students go on to do amazing things, win Chancellor Awards, be part of the Clinton Global Initiative, we have Truman Scholars who have come out of the Honors College. So we're just so proud to be able to work with such an amazing group of students who believe in the mission and also hold us accountable to that mission. And so now the work that I get to do focuses on inclusive community building, ensuring that we are creating the spaces that help our students feel welcomed, that help them feel accepted so that they can thrive and do some of that higher order thinking and evolving that we want to see them do.
You know, it's a wow to listen to you, and I think more now than generationally speaking, more now than ever before, the work you do with students who need, because this world is undergoing so many changes, i.e. pandemic and climate change. So students need more support and
Yes.
working with, I think, than any other generation in world history.
Yes,
So
and you're right. Student support. We renamed our area student support over the summer of 2021, and that was what drove it. Was student feedback and saying, you know, what do our students need the most?
Yeah.
You could do it all and be Jacks and Jills of all trades, or you know, and not really be successful, or you could choose to focus on what is most essential. And for us, based on student feedback, we saw that those two areas were most essential, right, for the purpose of graduating Honors College scholars. And so all that we do is to complement that mission, to ensure that as many students see the value, but also successfully complete their Honors College experience.
Which you do, which you do. Yeah, we could talk someday off camera or on camera, but where we've got time element. But Rutgers is an amazing place, truly an amazing place. And it's helped to change my life continually, and just observing what you all do and what Rutgers is all about, it's such, anyway, I'm just such a fan of the stuff you do, not because you're here, but because I sit and I watch and I observe and I interact with so many students, interview so many students for this channel. You know, I've interviewed a number of students, and I am amazed at who and what Rutgers is, and the kind of quality and amazing depth and breadth of students that we turn out. I'm not just saying it because you're here. I'm saying it because I interact and I do, and it's a constant joy for me to be involved with Rutgers. I love being around the banks. I'm glad I live close by. So you said something, and I wanted you, if you could define this. I love this. To lead is to serve.
Yes.
If you could just define that a little bit. That's what you said.
Yes, yes. And so that directly ties into servant leadership, which is something for me, I would say in the past 5 years in particular, or I would really have to say that our family's NICU experience, which I know we'll get into, is what has driven that. And we spent 11 months in the hospital with my son, and what I saw in that experience was transformational for me. Because you could tell the difference between the doctors who were there to serve and the doctors who were self-serving. And what is the difference between a doctor who is there to serve, who wants the family to understand, the family to thrive, or wants one that has kind of like this complex, right? And so I think for me, I walked away thinking so much about my own leadership philosophy and how that experience would change me. When I encountered students or families or anyone in my community encountering a crisis, and understanding that no matter how well qualified you are in that moment, the person is seeking support and an answer to their concern. And so, however you can be of service, if being of service is giving them water, then that's appropriate in my title. If being of service is coming back to campus and making sure a student has a webcam so they can take an exam, then that's appropriate in my title. Yes, there are conversations like these. There are places where you get to sit at tables and have high level conversations. But more than anything, for me, I find that I am a leader who prefers to be among the people. And when I get too removed from that experience, I'm no longer happy. And so you'll see that it's not just in my work life, but this is why the Easy Breezy life looks the way that it does. This is why Mighty Manny and Manny's Village does the work that it does. It's because I want to reach people who need support, people who need access to resources that I get to have access to because I had a great education at Rutgers University. It changed the way that I thought. It made me such a much more resourceful person. But I'll tell you what, we are still a very small minority of American society. There are tons of people, as you know, as someone who's familiar with Newark, New Jersey, where I live, there are tons of people who have language barriers, educational barriers, access barriers. And for me, my access, my leadership role serves merely as a connector to the resources between those people and the answers to their problems. So that is really what servant leadership means to me.
Okay. Wow, that's heavy, and there's a little segue there, and you can say whatever you want. We talked about it. I listened to you talk about your journey through the world of healthcare, and you had made an observation that I had made an observation on my own independently of you years and years ago about the institution of self-care and healing yourself and knowing. If you want to, whatever you want to say about that whole
Oh,
world.
there was a part in my presentation to lead us to serve where I talked about things I wish I knew. I wish I knew stepping into this role that you're either going to be excellent at taking care of yourself or you're going to fail miserably, especially when you're in a high pressure role where you are responsible for others. And I think that I didn't spend enough time studying or understanding what it meant to take care of myself. And I wouldn't say that I blame myself, but I do think having a high risk pregnancy, going into premature labor at 23 and 2 weeks was a part of me not actually practicing self care when I probably should have at some moments. It's not all of the reasons, right? There are certainly some bias that I encountered in the public health system, but I want to say that if I were listening to my body, I would make different choices. And then having to continue to ignore my body while my son was hospitalized and getting to a place where a doctor's telling you you're pre-diabetic, you're showing signs of arthritis, and you're not even in your 40s yet, and you don't have a family history of some of these things. And you're like, wait, me? How? Well, it's easy. Neglect your body long enough. And after a while, it will start to send you the signs, right? And so for me, it started with my own wake up call to say, hey, wait a minute. How many cycles of personal health crises will you need to go through before you start listening to your body when it tells you that it's stressed? Before you start taking a break, before you start eating a little bit better as opposed to grabbing the pizza when you're stressed. Not saying that pizza is bad all the time. I had pizza yesterday, but I'm certainly more mindful about what I eat and how I eat it because I realize that I live a very high stress life between my career, between being of service to my community and being the mother of a child with complex needs. So I have to be very disciplined, right? Which goes back to that course that we talked about, the science of success, which was born out of a partnership between myself and then Assistant Vice Provost, Dr. Sunita Kramer, who's also here at Rutgers University. And it was talking about how CEOs train. She initially started about the science of how CEOs trained. And so evolving that course into now talking about self-leadership and seeing self-care as part of self-leadership. What are the things that we do? Like scrolling on a cell phone at 2 o'clock in the morning, something I'm guilty of. Like get up to use the restroom, grab that phone, and that light automatically resets the clock in your mind, right? And you don't realize now you are messing up your sleep pattern, which is going to impact your mood, impact your effectiveness, just impact everything the next day. And so in order for me to be as productive as I am, I have to practice self-care. And that begins with protecting my time, protecting my mental health, and making decisions that will give me the longevity I need to continue doing good.
Brilliant. And all I'm going to say real quick, just to augment what you said, when I was a senior at Rutgers in 1969, so I'm giving away my age a little bit, I decided then, with everything I learned at Rutgers Pharmacy School, that I would not age traditionally. I did not want to age traditionally. So I'm well into being a septuagenarian now. And this thing up here functions as well as it ever has functioned. And there's been no diminution of cerebral stuff. And also,
what's your secret?
Well, we can talk about that, off camera or on camera at another point, because it's a great lecture for young people, because I'm a living example. Take care of your body, take self-care. And I have, and I'm walking around now with the guidance of a Rutgers cardiologist, as a matter of fact, and I'm walking around with 0 coronary artery plaque, 0. And that is all what you talked about, Issata, self-care. It's determination and self-care. But anyway, moving along, because we can talk about that some other time. But anyway, in your LinkedIn profile, which I kind of looked at, there was a thing, easy, breezy life. Can you talk about that?
Well, the summer that my son came home, I was seriously struggling with what I believe now. I didn't even get a chance to go to the doctor. It was probably symptoms of postpartum depression. I have kind of lost faith in doctors just because of what happened to us during a very high-risk pregnancy, and I needed an outlet. And so I started Easy Breeze Life after a friend of mine took me to a women's conference where they said, you might feel like you're really in the dark, but you can start with 15 minutes a day. And so with 15 minutes a day, I started what was just a blog of me writing. That then, by the advice of a mentor, turned into a podcast, that then turned into a women's conference. And now on that channel, there are 11 of us who are contributors, and we focus on the 9 dimensions of wellness, right? We talk about mental health, we talk about your finances, we talk about relationships, we talk about spirituality, and I like to bring together the experts, right? So there are women who talk about single motherhood, one who's a multi-million-dollar award-winning real estate broker who is passionate about health.
You froze. I don't know if you can hear me. You kind of froze. I'm gonna. So we're back with Issata. There was a lightning storm, and that's why we had a little pause here. So back with Easy Breezy Life.
I started the Easy Breezy Life as a small blog in 2018 when my son just came home from the hospital. I was struggling with, and when I look back now, it was probably symptoms of postpartum depression. But at that point, I was so deflated in my faith in the public health system that I really had not gone to a doctor for myself since my son had gone to the hospital. And so seeing a mental health professional at that moment was just not something I was willing to do. And so I started blogging and talking about our NICU story, and that evolved into a podcast, and it evolved into a community of women spanning across 40 countries and 10 contributors who come from the real estate field, the financial field, single motherhood. We have people who work in community development who just talk about our experiences as women and share the wisdom that we learned the hard way. And the easy breezy life is this entire idea that, you know, life is so much easier when you do it in community. And it's so much easier when you have a community of supportive women, something that I felt was lacking for me when I went through my NICU experience. And so it came from never wanting anyone in my sphere of influence to feel that kind of loneliness when they were going through something difficult. And so the easy breezy life is a life I wish I had. And so just because my life doesn't feel easy as a mother of a child with complex needs, doesn't mean that I can't help someone else. And you know what's so interesting, in the process of helping others, I always get the answers to the things that I need as well. And so there's a benefit to you being a servant. There's a benefit to you wanting to help others, because I get so many solutions to my problems from the women, right? There are 2 women in the community who are helping me now with my son transitioning into school, with IEP meetings, understanding what it means to have a complex situation and work with a public school district in that community, right? And so the community was to help me get out my emotions, and then it turned into helping other women. But I like to say it actually saved me.
Wow. Wow. What a story. And segue, you are the author, which I've read, of Mighty Manny, and I loved it, in the art. And then there's a coloring book, which I ordered. There's a coloring book too, and I showed it to my wife. She's a retired elementary school. So talk about the journey of you writing Mighty Manny and where people can get it. I got it on Amazon.
All right, great. So I'm a millennial, right? So we go to Google and YouTube for everything. So my son's in the hospital, and I'm like, there's got to be an inspirational story somewhere to keep me going here. I'm going to go on YouTube, look for videos. Could not find anything. On top of that, the doctors were telling me that in comparison to my daughter who passed away, Emmanuel's situation was so dire that his chances of survival were slim to none. I was just looking for hope and could not find it. So again, Mighty Manny is all of the things I wish I had. I wish someone, I didn't know about the world of trachs and G-tubes and hearing aids. And my son has a lot of the accessories, okay? He's got a VP shunt. He's got an Omiya reservoir. He had to have a PDA. Like, he had to have over 15 surgeries, came home on a vent and oxygen. And our first 2 years was nonstop doctor's visits. Everyone said that they would slow down, but every time I went to a doctor, they recommended me to another specialist. And we had umpteen specialists working on Emmanuel, from everything from his eyes to his bones to his muscle tone. And so my son started to hate going out, right? And in the book, you see that the mom is singing to him, because when we go to the hospital that we love so much, CHOP was amazing for our family, the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, the support they gave me as a mom, the peace of mind that I found there, the Ronald McDonald House in Philadelphia, those 2 places were the game changer. This is what happens when people serve from the right place. When the institutions are for people, families can thrive even in dire circumstances. And so Mighty Manny is meant to encourage hope. There's a little accompanying podcast that I tell parents to refer to in the back, stories that I recorded because I had to go to work and leave him at the hospital. I pre-recorded those messages and would let them play them in his crib so that he could hear my voice, because that was part of the NICU experience, the child feeling loved, your scent, the sound of your voice were all things that were supposed to help children thrive. And so it was, again, born out of necessity, right? Necessity is the mother of invention. But I knew that if I was a Black mom looking for a story about a child with all of these needs that was full of hope, somewhere out there was a mom, even if they didn't look like me, who needed the Mighty Manny story, not just for hope for themselves, but to educate people in their communities. We don't talk about trachs, G-tubes, hearing aids, glasses. We certainly don't talk about a little boy who needs all of them and supportive equipment. We don't talk about cerebral palsy. I never knew what cerebral palsy was before my son was diagnosed with it. And I said, well, you know what? My community certainly doesn't know, right? Because I'm an African immigrant, and there's a lot of stigma within the African community about children with disabilities, lots of folklore and beliefs about their stories. And so it was also to combat ignorance and have teachable moments with not just children, but the parents of those children who would be around my son, so that they could understand that all of these things that I'm calling accessories, but all the things that help Emmanuel are the things that make him mighty. The hearing aid makes him mighty. The glasses help him. The trach is his airway, right? That is helping him breathe and stay alive. And the G-tube helps him eat and have good nutrition.
Wow.
And so it is a merge between my spirituality and science, which you don't see people do all the time. It's like you either believe in science or you either believe in spirituality. But I'm like, no, I believe we can do both. And my spirituality makes me grateful for science. That saved my son's life.
Wow. Wow. What a story. And I so identify with all of this, because you and I talked about spirituality and health and it's just, it's marvelous. A truly marvelous story. As a result of this, somewhere along the line, 500 news outlets featured you, correct? In your journey?
Yes. We were featured on Fox, CBS affiliates,
Wow.
The Mighty, on Yahoo, just trying to spread the message as far and wide as we could. The book debuted at #1. It was self-published. Right? I knew nothing about publishing. It was actually one of my former students, also a Rutgers alum, who helped me illustrate it. And let me tell you, psychologically, I was struggling so much. She had to edit the book. You know, there's not a lot of text in that book, but that's just to tell you that I was struggling so much. I had the story, I had the images, but the young woman who supported this book was tremendous in getting it off the ground. The illustrator, Ashley
I
Ramirez.
mean, here, it's just, my cape is so special.
Yes.
You just look at that. And you're absorbed into it. It's just great. And self-publishing, by the way, I think is the only way to go. We can talk about that another time too. So guess what? I'm getting a thunderstorm maybe that you had, just in case we get cut off. And I know your time is limited. Quickly. You said something that I took a note on. Listening is the superpower.
Yes, the superpower.
Just quickly explain that.
It was because I felt unheard.
Boom.
Right? As a woman who had a higher risk pregnancy, as a mom, I felt unheard. Okay. And I realized, like, wow, if someone could just listen. I thought we lost our daughter because people wouldn't listen. Okay. We almost lost Emmanuel because people wouldn't listen. And so my skill, my superpower now as an associate dean is listening. When the students say, it may sound like a whisper, but by the time I hear that whisper a third time, I'm like, wait a minute, we need to have a conversation. And what I have found is that as a leader, if you really listen to the people you are leading, listen to their concerns, not what they're saying, but what's behind that. Right? Like, are you listening to their intent? Are you listening to their pain? Are you listening to their motivations? We could be so much more effective. And it has changed the way that I do leadership, is that even in my supervision, I walk into my conversations with students and colleagues as a coach. I said, my job is to bring out the absolute best in you by making this environment the very best it can be for you. And so when you tell me that you are struggling with navigating a certain part of this environment, is my responsibility to either A, help you enhance your skills so that you can navigate it, or B, think about where the barriers are to remove that. And I can't do that if I don't listen.
You know what, Issata, we didn't finish this. I got a bad thunderstorm out here, and if my power gets cut, then all of this disappears. So the best thing right now is to thank you tons we'll be in touch. And if you wanna, I would love you to come back. We can talk
Yes, I would
about,
love to.
I would, there's so much more we can talk about, and engage. So, I'm gonna say, please come back. I don't want to lose this whole thing. And, thank you so much for being here.